You're listening to DruidCast episode 228.
Disguising your intention with a witch's kiss, a droplet from an ocean thrown into the sky, divided from itself without a reason why. state of ecstasy, recalled at any time. The ghost within the wireless whispered him to sleep, simplifying sigils he cast upon the deep. He left the earth still burning and a notebook full of signs, a cat's cabal of pages, a monotone of minds. Faded from our knowledge, the magician's last desire was working on a canvas, painting lines of fire. He was the shaman of the city, the prophet of the box, wandering through the bomb sites, kicking up the dust, dancing with the white bear, a young man seeking fame. 50 years now long gone, and you know he's the shaman of the city, the prophet of the box, wandering through the bomb sites, kicking up the dust, dancing with the white bear, a young man seeking fame. 50 years now long gone, and you know he's the shaman of the city, the prophet of the box, wandering through the bomb sites, kicking up the dust, dancing with the white bear, a young man seeking fame. 50 years now long gone, and you should know his name.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to DruidCast episode 228. I am your host, Dave the Bard, and DruidCast is brought to you on or around the 20th of the month by the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. If you want to find out more about the Order and their courses, you can do that on the website, which is at druidry.org. Opening the show, you heard Dancing with the White Bear from the pagan prog rock folk band Stealing the Fire from their latest album Roadmaps and Rituals, which is out now on their Bandcamp site. And don't forget, you can find links to all of the artists featured on DruidCast in the show notes. What a fabulous opener, and thank you for sending that in. I am sure I'm going to play more from that album on future shows. This month's show is a show of two parts. The first Talky Bit is a recording of an interview I did with Jakub Achrer, or Achrer? Jakub, I've never spoken your second name, so I don't even know how it's pronounced. But we spoke at this year's BMWC camp at the Czech Republic. Now, Jakub is a dear friend, even though I don't know how to pronounce his second name, and was one of the pioneers of the pagan community in the Czech Republic. We talk about what led him to the path, how the community began, and some of the ways that ancient Slavic traditions are still present in the modern-day country. Now, the second part of the show is dedicated to one individual who is a national treasure here in the UK, and to be very honest, all over the world. I am talking, of course, about Professor Ronald Hutton. At this year's OBOD Summer Gathering, the Order publicly recognised the work he has done over so many decades for the Order, Druidry and the wider pagan community around the world. A new position in the Order was created just for him, that of Ollamh of the Order, and he was also honoured as the very first Fellow of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. So quite some show, but first, here is my conversation with Jakub from this year's BMWC in the Czech Republic.
The Talky Bit.
Here I am at the BMWC, the 30th anniversary, 30th BMWC with Jakub.
Hello.
Hello. We've known each other for
eternity.
Decades, probably now.
Yeah.
In fact, I've said the story many times, but you are the reason I managed to get a concert in Prague that first time because let's just say you gifted Hearn's Apprentice to some friends.
You could say that.
But, it's the reason I'm here. It's the reason I met your community. So, I've got a great big thank you to say to you,
You're most welcome. Back in the day, those were the times that some of the listeners might no longer remember that or might not remember that.
Yeah.
But music was spread through burning CDs, actually.
That's right, it was.
It was actually a thing.
Yes, it was. Yes, there was no kind of torrenting or anything at the time, was it? It was just, you just burnt CDs for your friends, and that's it. So, we are here in the Czech Republic, your home. Tell us, and you've been involved within the Czech community for longer than probably longer than a lot of people. So, but then you had your own beginning of the path. So what drew you, tell us about those early days and what drew you to the path.
What drew me to the path? Wow. Couple of things. There are these weird moments in life that start to make sense only backwards.
Okay.
You look back to them decades later, and now you see, all right. When I was a small kid, I was very sick and I had a fever, and I all of a sudden drew a star goddess on a paper. Even though I didn't know anything about goddesses or paganism, because it was back in communism. That was before the so-called Velvet Revolution in '89.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
and I put it on the window facing outwards so that she could help me and heal me and bring me beautiful dreams.
Wow.
And then that moment was almost forgotten, but at a certain point during a certain ritual that I did, all of a sudden it came back. So you could say that would be
That's the
very start. Although I was an atheist until university, but then psychedelics happened.
Oh, okay.
And that experience convinced me beyond any doubt that there is a spiritual reality.
Right.
And I started to seek it, not through psychedelics, but through meditation practice. And that brought me to Korean Zen school. I practiced Zen Buddhism for a few years, did retreats, and that worked very much. It helped me to touch the very essence of spirituality and religion. But then, after one retreat, it was a particularly long one, an exhausting one, someone brought a flower in a vase against all the Zen protocol, which is quite strict.
Okay.
And they brought it in the middle, at the very end of the retreat. So we were all sitting there in this perfect square with a flower in the center. And I was like, there is a spirituality out there in the fields, in the forests, that is native to this land. What I am doing works. It's great. But it's not my path. My path is out there. It is in this land. And from that moment on, I started to seek native religion, European.
Yeah.
At that point, I had a girlfriend who loved Harry Potter. And during that time, she told me, I would like to be a witch and read some books about that, like magic and occult. And I was, all right, Christmas will be soon, so I got those books.
Okay.
And yeah, blimey, I opened Raymond Buckland's Blue Book.
Oh, was it that one? That was your...
And that was insta-click.
Yeah, okay.
This, I know. This, I need to do. It wasn't I want to, I need.
Okay.
There was, no doubt. It's like, without this, I don't need to be here. So, started to practice that. Like eclectic Wicca, non-initiatory first. Read more books, deepened the practice a little. After a few years, I sent an email to Pagan Federation Austria through Witchbox. Witchbox is no longer a thing, but again,
wasn't it a huge thing?
It was a huge thing.
Yeah.
Like like burning the CDs.
It's
those
been and gone. Yeah.
Yes, it's gone now.
Yeah.
But I had a listing there. So through Witchbox, I contacted PFI Austria because in that listing, it said that they also offer training. And I was like, trying to get every opportunity to learn more, to make connections, because at that point, the community in the Czech Republic was non-existent. There was nothing, basically. Wow. And my, high priestess to be, so to speak, replied. It was Karen.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And, she said, well, we have a coven and, it's good that you are interested in this. If you want, you can come and see us.
Yeah.
And, I went. That was even before the Czech Republic was in the European Union.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so came to Vienna. We had a nice chat in the evening, and it was, again, at Instaclick. So I asked for initiation, and the rest is history, as we say.
Yeah, right. So what was it? Was it religion or was it magic that drew you to Wicca particularly? Or to your path, maybe?
Yeah, religion.
It was
absolutely religion.
Okay.
It's a bit weird because I'm a practitioner of Gardnerian Wicca, but to me the driving force was always the religion and the mysticism, knowing thyself, the path to enlightenment, and that kind of thing. Magic was never the driving force for me, which is kind of weird, coming from a magical initiatory tradition.
Yeah, I know.
I know it's kind of strange, but it kind of happened that way.
Yeah. For me, it was the other way around because I got into ceremonial magic, and then I found the paganism after that and the connection.
Right.
So yeah.
That's slightly ironic, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Yeah. And now I think I've worked with one spell in the last sort of like 3 decades, but before then it was very much, casting circles and stuff like that. Yeah. So was it, what is paganism to you then? How is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paganism to me is a religion first and foremost. And it is a polytheistic religion. So that means 2+. Even though in paganism, there are also pantheists, even monists. My wife and the high priestess of our coven that I have the honor to work with, she is a monist. So
really?
So she's a Wiccan.
Yeah.
She identifies as pagan, but she sees the divinity and the pantheons as, monastic reflection, so to speak.
What? So all gods are one
source.
Yes.
One source. Not
or maybe
without
faces.
Yeah, without gender, like
yeah.
Maybe even without a name.
Yeah. The great big whatever it is.
Yes. Yeah. I actually like that. If you were a book religion, that this would be one of the moments you would write down into some sort of Bible.
That's it. That's it.
The great big kind of thing.
The great big whatever it is. Yeah. And.
European.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah.
And in my definition, paganism relates to this continent.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm very hesitant, to include, for example, the Hindu gods under that umbrella. But some people do, and whatever.
Yeah.
So fine.
Yeah. And you got involved with the coven. But then you obviously, because when I first met you were in a certainly a leadership role within the community. So what happened with the? We got some great horses here, having a good old chat over there. You were involved with the Pagan Federation here in the Czech Republic.
That's true.
So how did that come about?
How did that come about? A few years after my initiation, I went to Scotland. And there I met Morgana, the head of PFI.
Yeah.
And we had a chat about the idea of starting a branch in the Czech Republic. Well, first and foremost, because I was thinking about that idea myself for quite some time. I became a member back in 2003. And I liked the magazine, the Pagan Dawn. I liked the idea. And so I went back to Scotland and talked to a few people. And we did a first pub moot, and I think 3 people came to have a beer.
Yeah.
And things kind of evolved. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And when I first came here, one of the things that I loved was the songs. I remember my first, when we first met each other. And obviously beer is a big cultural thing in the Czech Republic.
A little bit, yeah.
But so is singing, and so is there were dances that you all seem to know, and hearing your voices singing in the pubs was just magical. Tell me about the Czech Republic, the landscape, your connection to it. How do you relate to it? What's your relationship with it?
It is a very strong one. Back in the day, before I had family, my ideal holidays would be in Czech Republic. Getting to know the country. It's a life quest for me, getting to know the country. There are still some, white spots on the map, so to speak, for me.
Yeah.
But I've been to a lot of places and I keep getting to know them. The land, it's kind of gentle. It's very diverse. You have mountains. You have pieces of land that are completely flat. There are big forests, many species of trees. So the biodiversity is absolutely amazing. But it's not monumental. It's cozy. I think that would be the word I would use. Yeah, and walking it, doing treks or trails. Not sure about the vocabulary here, but love that too. So me and my wife have an ongoing project, walking around the whole country on the border. With just bag and things to sleep and bit of food and just keep going.
Yeah. Is there freedom in the countryside? Can you walk everywhere, or is it on only public footpaths?
There's quite a lot of freedom. Yet, of course, there are protected areas where it's officially not really allowed to sleep, but people do it anyway. And nobody really gives a damn,
One of the things that strikes me, particularly, I played my concert last night, right? It was just fantastic. The audience response, the love that I feel was overwhelming, and I've just noticed something within the Czech pagan community. I don't know if it's out within the wider community of the Czech Republic, but certainly in the Czech pagan community, you seem to just have a certain level of a childlike quality. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like...
I absolutely do.
Yeah?
I do know what you mean.
And I don't feel it many
that.
other places, but whenever I come here, it's like you've managed to almost avoid cynicism and just there's a love of and a lust for life. Is that? I'm not imagining it then. No,
you're not imagining it at all. No. Yeah, that's why you had pogo at your concerts.
Yes.
I don't think you get it very often.
I do not. No, I've had stage divers, and last night there was a mosh pit that started by you. But nonetheless, yeah.
Oh my God!
Why do you think that is? Why?
Well, if we say community, I usually say that. Well, in that context, if you think a countrywide community, I usually use plural. I tend to think about pagan community as communities, because I think that's what it is. There are, they know about each other. There are interconnections, but there are like these islands. They are not strongly connected. I mean, so in a social way, and they are different, values, different. How to put it? You could even say different spiritualities. One would be much more about Slavic and native faith. In another would be more focused on the runes. There is a big community that focuses on the runecraft.
Okay.
And then there is this particular one that started with PFI and that is now kind of orbiting around entity called the Czech Pagan Society and also BMWC. So. Yeah, but this is unique even in that context.
Really? Yeah. Well, I have a surprise every time I come here, and I love it. Are there any remnants of like ancient sort of Czech paganism that is still within Czech culture now that you could identify? Any of the...
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. What would that be?
Well, Christmas to begin with.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The 1st of May.
Yeah. So there is a Beltane tradition within Czech
sort
culture.
Sort of. It's not called that
No,
way.
of course not. No,
But
yeah.
if you come over, around that date, in each village you would see a huge pole,
Oh,
and then I don't have the vocabulary for it. I forgot the English word, but it's a round thing made of leaves
Garland.
and flower. Garland.
A garland, yeah,
Garland,
yeah.
and that's hanging on the ribbons.
Yeah.
And so there's like in the top 20% of that pole, there is this garland hanging on the ribbons. So the symbolism is fairly obvious, and you have fires going on
Yeah.
on the 1st of May or 30th of April, more like.
yeah.
That combination, you know, you can look at that and you think, of course.
Yeah.
And there are also some remnants of folk magic. For instance, this thing that we discovered recently with Kaczka for our podcast. It's called Wetterhorn, and it's a shell, or a seashell, basically, that you can blow into, and then through that you affect the weather. And there are folk stories that have quite a pagan undertone. You have these forest beings in them, and there is this object involved in one of them.
Wow.
in this myth. And the same object, the very same object, is actually in a museum, so you can actually see it.
Oh, right.
And this research that we did made us think there must be a connection. This is a real thing, a remnant of past long gone. So these fragments,
They are there.
mostly. Yeah.
And do you incorporate those into your Wiccan practice?
We try.
Yeah.
Our coven is very much folk magic oriented, and towards nature, working with simplistic things.
Yeah.
So we kind of work with that
Yeah.
a little bit. But there is other stuff also, like Slavic gods. There are remnants of Slavic spirituality in the land, such as names of villages or hilltops.
Right.
Yeah, there is this hill called Mokoshin, which comes from the goddess Mokosh, which is a Slavic goddess of fertility.
Yeah.
So you have these things.
Wow.
They are there. They're not easily spotted.
Yeah.
They're not so obvious, but they are definitely there.
Yeah. Wow. It's a bit like England, to be honest with you, because obviously with the coming of Christianity and the conversion, before William the Conqueror and all that kind of stuff, there was the last pagan god names spoken in England were Woden and Thunor and these gods, and they are, I have Thunder's Barrow Hill, just as which a song about that. It's a 40-minute walk into the South Downs, and it's obviously connected with Thunor and Thor, and it's in our days of the week and stuff like that. So it's that kind of thing within the names of villages and hilltops within Czech, say a similar thing.
Yeah, but you guys have Stonehenge. It's kind of difficult to miss. Right?
Yeah, well, yeah. Yes. But that's almost going. That's almost going way back into prehistory.
Yeah.
What I think we're talking about here with the names of your hills and with our places. That's the kind of the last moments of paganism. Within sort of Slavic culture, is still held within some of those places that sort of give hints of these ancient Slavic gods and goddesses. Is there a magical sort of Slavic tradition that is still around within?
I wouldn't say
Republic?
I wouldn't say still around.
No,
it is around a little bit. There is one guy here who is into that kind of stuff.
the guy who did the talk this morning on Slavic death rituals.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly,
yeah, right,
exactly. Okay. But I would say it's beginning,
right,
in a way. The Slavic reconstructionist tradition has been around for a while, at least since late 90s, if not earlier,
right,
for a few years. So it's definitely one of the first.
Yeah. Well, I guess that brings me to the kind of last question: is where do you think paganism and Wicca, witchcraft, the Slavic construction traditions? Where do you think they might be heading in the future? Can you see a direction there?
I don't know.
No, no.
This diversity, communities instead of community.
Yeah.
We tend to think about this as a linear thing. We imagine a line.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it works like that.
Okay. All right.
It might be circles,
Yeah.
dead ends, almost like a spider web.
Yeah.
And there are all possible futures in
Who
all different
knows?
communities.
Yeah.
Some might grow bigger, some might,
Do you
turn into something else, transform.
Is paganism back in the sort of like 90s? There were problems with paganism in the UK. The newspapers. How is it here in the Czech Republic? Do you have interfaith?
We do have problems to some extent, but we don't have interfaith because the Czech Republic is so atheistic. It's one of the most atheistic countries in the world.
Oh, right.
Maybe even the most atheistic country in the world.
Okay.
So people really aren't bothered by being recognized by state or whoever. They
enough.
just do their thing.
Yeah, which is reflected in the community, as we've already said. Yeah.
Nobody really cares.
Yeah. Well, Jakub, thank you so much for introducing the Czech pagan community to my music all those years ago. Thank you for being such a groovy person, for starting mosh pits and all the other things you do. It's lovely to spend some time with you, my friend.
Thank you for talking to me.
Bless you. Cheers.
Bless you.
Won't you come and walk with me on these hills, these hollow hills? Such a wonder there to see. So the story goes, 'neath the green and different sky, in these hills, these hollow hills, is where the land of fairy lies. So the story goes, all is quiet, all is still. Take a seat upon this hill. The Eimear bell is closing soon. In evening's twilight you sit down upon this sacred hollow mound to receive a wonder or a wound. Won't you come and walk with me on these hills, these hollow hills? Such a wonder there to see. So the story goes, 'neath the green and different sky, in these hills, these hollow hills, is where the land of fairy lies. So the story goes, from the day that you were born and when you heard the hunter's horn, is this free will or destiny? The great folk smiling, it is done, the spell is cast, it has begun, and such a wonder you will see. Won't you come and walk with me on these hills, these hollow hills? Such a wonder there to see. So the story goes, 'neath the green and different sky, in these hills, these hollow hills, is where the land of fairy lies. So the story goes, and as that day back in the glen, the air is still and silent when a vision from across the field, the gates of Annun open wide, a lady on a horse astride, and now the prophecy's revealed. Won't you come and walk with me on these hills, these hollow hills? Such a wonder there to see. So the story goes, 'neath the green and different sky, in these hills, these hollow hills, is where the land of fairy lies. So the story goes, oh won't you come and walk with me on these hills, these hollow hills? Such a wonder there to see. So the story
It was so lovely to see Jakub and all of my Czech friends when I played a concert there in June, and I hope it won't be too long before we see each other again, my friends. The song that followed the interview was These Hollow Hills from my new album, Songs from a Mabinogi. Now that the 4 branches of the Mabinogi have been released, I've put together an album of all 21 songs from the 4 albums in one collection without any of the narration. And it's out now. It's available from my Bandcamp site as a download, and it's also available on all of the usual streaming services. Now, for the second half of the episode from the OBOD Summer Gathering, I will hand over to the current Chief of the Order, Eimear Burke. Then you will hear from the previous chosen Chief, Philip Carr-Gomm, and finally from Professor Ronald Hutton himself.
Achhuiniúsle, a chóide. It's a rare privilege to honour a scholar whose work has not merely illuminated a field of study, but has fundamentally transformed it. And today, the Order of Bards, Ovids and Druids bestows one of its rarest and most distinguished honours, the title of Ollamh, upon Professor Ronald Hutton. Stay calm, there's a long speech to follow. Now, as far as I know, this is the second first time honour bestowed upon Ronald. Now, let me explain. The ancient title of Ollamh was given in the Irish world to a master scholar, a poet, a historian, a keeper of wisdom. One who combined learning with service, insight with dedication to community. This honour is not conferred, nor was it conferred lightly. And it's difficult to imagine anyone in the modern world more worthy of this distinction than Professor Ronald Hutton. And as Professor of History at the University of Bristol, and now also the Gresham Professor of Divinity, where Ronald is the first pagan ever to hold the chair of divinity. Now, that's his first honour. And I hope I'm right now, Ronald, he has devoted decades to exploring the religious imagination of Britain and Europe. And through his scholarship, he's helped to bring the study of paganism, folklore, witchcraft and druidry into the mainstream of serious historical inquiry. And in a world where discussions of these subjects have often drifted between romantic fantasy, polemic and sensationalism, Professor Hutton has brought something revolutionary. Intellectual rigour combined with genuine sympathy for the subject. And his work has shown that the study of paganism is not simply a fringe curiosity, but an essential part of understanding the cultural and spiritual history of these islands. And among his landmark achievements was the publication of The Pagan Religions of the Ancient British Isles in 1991, the first major synthesis of pre-Christian religion across Britain and Ireland. And this was an extraordinary scholarly undertaking, drawing together archaeology, folklore and history into a coherent account of ancient religious life. Then came The Triumph of the Moon, a history of modern pagan witchcraft in 1999, now widely regarded as a foundational text in pagan studies. And with this work, Professor Hutton demonstrated that modern paganism and Wicca deserved serious historical attention as an authentic religious movement of the modern world. And the book helped legitimise an entire field of scholarship and remains one of the most influential studies ever written on contemporary pagan religion. And for many within this order, his contribution to the understanding of Druidry itself has been immeasurable. And works such as The Druids and especially Blood and Mistletoe The History of the Druids of Britain, he traced the long and fascinating story of Druidry from antiquity to the present day, showing how the figure of the Druid has continued to evolve across the centuries of cultural imagination, spirituality, scholarship, and national identity. And he showed us that Druids should not be seen simply as figures frozen in antiquity, but as enduring presences in the cultural imagination of these lands, reshaped by Romans, antiquarians, poets, nationalists, occultists, archaeologists, and modern spiritual seekers alike. And what makes Ronald's work so exceptional is not merely its scholarship, though that scholarship is immense. It is the spirit in which it has been offered, rigorous without cynicism, critical without hostility, and deeply humane throughout. And he has approached modern Druids and pagans not as curiosities to be dissected, nor as fantasies to be indulged, but as human beings participating in meaningful spiritual traditions deserving of respect and understanding. But today we honour not only the scholar. We honour the man who has served this order faithfully and generously for decades. Ronald Hutton has been a loyal and committed member of the Order of Bards, Ovids and Druids. He's led the Doboonry Grove with dedication and wisdom. And over more than 30 years, he has given lectures, talks, presentations at order camps, gatherings, conferences and celebrations, enriching countless members through his learning, humour, warmth and generosity of spirit. Again and again, he has given his time freely to support the life of this community. And of course, anyone who has heard Ronald lecture knows that rare experience of merging simultaneously better informed, intellectually challenged, and of course, entertained. Academic brilliance combined with impeccable comic timing, an infuriatingly unfair distribution of gifts. Anyway, as I've said earlier, the title of Ollamh is not awarded lightly. And its origin from the Irish, Ol means great. So it means the master poet, the learned one, the chief historian. And it recognises not only mastery of knowledge, but service to tradition, to community and to culture. And it recognises a life devoted to learning that is shared generously with others. And for his outstanding contributions to the historical understanding of paganism and Druidry, for his immense body of scholarship, for his service to the Order of Bards, Ovids and Druids, for his leadership of the Doboonry Grove, and for over 30 years of teaching and inspiring members of this order, it is our profound honour to confer upon Professor Ronald Hutton the title of Ollamh. So, Professor Ronald Hutton, I can't even say your name now, Ronald Hutton, we thank you for your scholarship, your integrity, your friendship, your humour, and your lifelong dedication to the preservation and illumination of these traditions. Can you come to the stage, please? You look at them. So, I would like to confer this token of the Ollamh on Creve Or, the golden branch. You've heard of the silver branch, the bronze branch. The golden branch is for the holder of the highest office, Ronald Co-Orgus Mór.
say that again? Yes. Back in the mists of time, as the new millennium began, we decided to present you, Ronald, with the first Mount Hemus Award, a distinction that would mark the beginning of a lineage of 28 and growing scholars who have presented their findings on Druidry and related subjects in conferences, papers, and publications. Now we have decided that another honour should be created within the order. Achievements in the sciences and arts are already recognised amongst our Mount Hemus scholars and our honorary bards. But we wanted to create an honour that recognises something else, not exclusively academic contributions or artistic achievements, but outstanding contributions specifically to the tradition of Druidry itself. It is for this reason that it now falls to me to present you with a third distinction. Druids love threes, after all. Not only are you our first Mount Hemus scholar, and now Ollamh of the Order, but it is our pleasure to confer upon you today the very first Fellowship of the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. This means that from now on, Ronald may place after his name the initials FOBOD. Suggestions, please, as to what those letters might really stand for. The printable ones, Andrew may place in touchstone in a future edition. When I think of Ronald, I find myself thinking of a golden eagle. He possesses that extraordinary capacity to soar high above the centuries and millennia, seeing vast panoramas of history, culture, religion, folklore, and human imagination spread out beneath him. He can trace patterns across great spans of time with astonishing clarity. And yet, like an eagle, he can also home in upon the tiniest detail, swooping down with those sharp intellectual talons of his to examine that detail. That combination is rare, breadth of vision combined with acuity of vision, the ability to see both the landscape and the single blade of grass. If I were to pick a card for Ronald from the Druid Animal Oracle, I might pick the eagle, but I might just as easily pick the goose. Same capacity to soar and then swoop down. The goose can soar so high it can wave to the pilots of 747s, yet it can also strut about happily in the mud. So too with Ronald. He can rise into the highest realms of scholarship and intellectual analysis, but he can also become completely part of the wonderful, chaotic muddiness of camp life. In fact, Ronald was instrumental in catalyzing the very beginnings of the Order camps, because many years ago he memorably declared to me that he would swim through a river of sewage to get to one. Which thankfully never became necessary, despite the camp of 2019, which was beset with storms, cascades of mud, and an outbreak of the plague, prompting the printing of a T-shirt that read, "I survived the OBOD camp of 2019. We in the Order have been extraordinarily fortunate that Ronald chose not merely to study Druidry from afar, but to become an integral part of the life of this Order. Over decades, he has given his scholarship, his time, his energy, his friendship, and his extraordinary knowledge to our camps, gatherings, talks, conferences, and ceremonies. I honestly can't remember Ronald ever missing a gathering, if it was humanly possible for him to attend. Have you got the number? Have you totted them up?
No, but I have been at every one.
You've been at every gathering? Yeah.
Yeah, it always was humanly possible.
Fantastic. It's a detail. You see the talons. That's a detail I got wrong there. Yes. Extraordinary. I honestly can't remember. Now I can. Now you've reminded me. You never missed a gathering. This in itself is a remarkable act of loyalty and dedication. Now, since Christian cultures divide time into that of before Christ and after Christ, the Druid world should really divide its history into two periods as well, BR and AR. Until Ronald sank his teeth, or perhaps, sticking with our animal card analogies, his beak or talons into Druidry, an understanding of its history was quite hopeless, filled with speculation marred by forgery and fantasy. But by consistently applying rigorous scholarship to the study of Druidry, ancient and modern, by questioning assumptions, examining the evidence, and refusing easy romanticism when the facts would not support it, Ronald has been able to give us a history worthy of its name. That has not always been comfortable for us, which is precisely why it has been so valuable. Because if Ronald had not asked difficult questions over the years, had not examined our traditions critically as well as sympathetically, I think the Order would be a very different organisation today, and a far less relevant one. He helped us to grow up. He has helped modern Druidry to mature, to come of age, and we are all profoundly richer because of it. Ronald, thank you for your scholarship, your friendship, your honesty, your humour, your loyalty, and your immense contribution to this order and to the wider world of Druidry. With deep gratitude and affection, it is our immense pleasure to award you with the first Fellowship of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, as affirmed in this certificate.
I think it might be most interesting in this context if I spoke briefly about my own relationship with OBOD and the beginning of it, not least because it will say some things about the history of Druidry in the 1990s, which may be news to some here. And really, things sprang from two great developments in the early 90s. The first was the appearance of Druidry on a big scale in the world of alternative spirituality. And it came from two different sources. The first was the older esoteric order of the Universal Bond, from which OBOD seceded. This had a tradition of seeking personal wisdom and growth and embracing all faiths. And OBOD honoured that completely. But Philip gave it, after his refoundation of it in 1988, the most secret, arcane, devilish and potent of all magical tools, the correspondence course, which was of such immediate success that the growth of OBOD became exponential very fast and remained so. And other orders of this kind quite soon sprang out of OBOD. But the other source was the Stonehenge Festival, the most provocative and outrageous shop window for the New Age, for the hippie movement in Britain, which lasted from 1974 to 84. And when it got closed down, along with access to Stonehenge in 1985, three overtly pagan, green in tooth and claw, countercultural Druid orders, the Glastonbury Order, the Secular Order, and the Loyal Arthurian Warband, crystallized out of that festival. They had lost their festival, they'd lost their holy place at Stonehenge, they'd lost their clergy, the Universal Bond, so they had now to do it for themselves. And as well as standing for paganism directly and unmixed, they also stood for the struggle against the erosion of civil liberties, against controversial construction schemes that destroyed areas of natural beauty and archaeological interest. Between OBOD's style of Druidry and this countercultural style lay a gulf. Philip's idea of the Druid as peacemaker, making peace in the land and within people themselves, and the countercultural Druid's idea of the Druid as warrior against injustice and destruction were opposed. But in the early 90s, this had not become apparent, and they formed one united movement supporting each other and making a huge impact in the world of spirituality. The other development was, at the same time, British paganism organised itself. Until then, it had been fractured into individual groups, and the main tradition available was pagan witchcraft, most of all Wicca, its best known, best published, and longest established tradition. But after 1988, we had a vibrant, well-organised pagan federation, and this in turn encouraged groups to copy the federation's example in having national conferences and regional and local gatherings. And these provided an opportunity for a whole range of pagans and allied spiritualities to get together for the first time with an ever-developing raft of invited speakers. And that's how I came on the national scene, having been, like most of paganism, in the shadows for my youth. I had published a book which got the attention of pagan readers, and I became consistently and excitedly invited to be one of the speakers at the national and local events. And that's where I first ran into OBOD, in meeting its local and regional representatives speaking for the new Druidry at these gatherings and speaking alongside them and befriending them. But that's the way it probably would have stayed forever if it hadn't been for a titanic figure physically and spiritually among the countercultural Druids, Tim Sebastian, the chief of the secular order of Druids. Tim Sebastian was a giant in many ways. He was gay, he was an aging hippie with ideals still to change the world. And the radical journalist Chris Stone once described him as the most useless Druid on the planet. This was thoroughly unjust. Tim was a great mover and shaker. He put on a terrifying series of events which between them reshaped Druidry and spirituality. But the point that Chris was making is they never ever turned out the way that Tim had designed them to be. And in 1993, he tried one of these and succeeded, a huge conference at Avebury at the autumn equinox, to prove that modern paganism and Druidry were in a direct and unbroken succession from the ancient world. And being Tim, he then invited a large and distinguished set of speakers who believed in the exact opposite, including me and including Philip. We were all invited to convene to plan the event at Tim's home in Wiltshire, and did, and met each other, and that's how I met and befriended Philip. Tim never noticing that none of us were echoing his actual wishes for the conference. And despite this, and because of Tim, the conference was a roaring success. And it was there that I had the conversation with Philip, in which Philip approached me and said that he knew that I'd been part of successful summer camps for many years for groups concerned in paganism and other forms of alternative spirituality. And could I help him lay on a first summer camp for OBOD in '94? And I gladly did. A group of friends with whom I work provided the equipment and also the first site crew to help set the thing up. And I duly attended. And there I met Stephanie and others who became my permanent friends in the order and had a whale of a time. But the camp allowed me to attempt something else and something political. And this was to heal what was at the time a growing rift between Druidry and Wicca. Because Wicca had been the established dominant pagan and alternative tradition on the block when the new Druidry appeared. And just as when Wicca appeared and grew, to my intense irritation, it kept on remorselessly defining itself against Christianity and disparaging it. So the new Druidry, more gently, in some cases at least, defined itself against Wicca, not usually to Wicca's advantage, by stressing what Druidry provided that was new and different instead. And this was creating a growing tension between the two traditions. And my own tradition was, my chief tradition was and remains Wicca. And I decided to use the camp as an opportunity to effect a better understanding between the two. And so I asked Philip if the two of us could stage a debate between us at the centre of the camp, physically and in time. It was absurdly theatrical, entirely my fault. We sat enthroned alongside each other. Philip wore white robes and gold ornaments as a Druid chief, and I wore black robes and silver ornaments for moonlight as a Wiccan Lord of the Night. And we debated, and of course we got on well, but I felt at a certain point that something was needed to break through to convey the essence of Wicca to the 100 Druids in a circle around me. And so I chose the Charge of the Goddess, which is one of the most famous and central of Wiccan texts. It's delivered by a priestess representing a goddess. I turned it round and used it as a priest addressing a goddess just by changing the pronouns. Now, what nobody knew was that the site crew for the camp was recruited mainly from one of my Wiccan covens, so that the first ever OBOD camp was on this invisible foundation of Wicca. And at the moment that I rose from my throne to deliver this invocation, the maiden of my coven appeared quietly behind the circle of Druids and positioned herself as a priestess to receive it. And that lit me up, and I gave it. And after that, somehow, everything was different. There was a feeling of reconciliation, of understanding, and Philip picked it up and ran nobly with it. He carried out a number of actions to reach out to Wicca and to establish a friendship with it for Druidry, and eventually published a book, Druidcraft, which brought the two together. And this kind of seismic wave rolled out from Philip and OBOD to engulf the rest of Druidry, with other Druid chiefs reconciling with Wicca, and some of them actually apologising for what they had said and written. And amazingly, the rift was healed and has never opened since. That, of course, freed the Druids to turn savagely on each other. As the chasm between spiritual and countercultural Druidry opened up, I, of course, like the fool that I am, remained fast friends with everybody. And by 1998, I may have been the only person on the planet to whom every Druid chief in Britain was still speaking. I was recruited to chair the Council of British Druid Orders simply because I was acceptable as the idiot in the middle, the kind of person who walks blindly through a minefield without treading on a single one because I didn't know they were there. But as a result of this development, of Philip reaching out, I felt obliged to join OBOD as part of the coming together. And the more so in that one of the most dynamic of OBOD groves had just moved to Bristol, my home city, and had some friends of mine in it. And I duly joined it, and then spent the 3.5 years working up through the Gwersi to the grade of Druid. And after 4 years, the Grove asked me to become its chief, and I have remained so ever since. It's one of the most long-lived of OBOD groves. It was founded in 1992 and it's still going strong. It's one of the largest, and it's one of the few, actually I don't know of another, but there must be some, that has individual meetings for the 3 grades between each of the 2 festivals. And this really means that in theory at least 36 of the 52 Sundays I have in each year are given up to OBOD for this grove alone, not including the gatherings and the other OBOD events. So it's become a considerable and thoroughly worthwhile commitment. And the order duly made me its greatest gift. Not the Mount Hemus, not the Golden Brow, not the fellowship, but the lifelong companionship of my partner Anna, which came out of the Dabuni Grove. So I owe a huge debt to OBOD for that alone. So that's how I came into it. That is the background, and that's how the relationship developed. I think that if OBOD has a single gift to make to anybody who integrates with it, it's a better understanding of their own true selves, and therefore of what's around them, and a better understanding of one's true self, as the ancient tradition of ceremonial magic has always taught, is a greater link with the divine, however one defines that. Druidry is often described as a path. For me, it isn't. It's more like a rapidly flowing torrent of a river in which I find myself in a leaking canoe with no paddle, mostly intent on avoiding rocks as I'm swept down it at 80 miles an hour, bobbing along helplessly in this tremendous current of which we are all part. But part of the joy of that and part of the excitement is the wonderful number of different people who are bobbing around in that torrential river with me. And it is that sense of integration, of belonging, at last in being given a formal title and role in the order, that makes me thank Eimear, thank Philip, and thank all of you for all that you are and all that you have done for me.
What a gift Ronald has been and will continue to be, I am sure. And welcome, welcome, welcome to the Ollamh and First Fellow of the Order. I was actually at the BMWC when all of that happened, so I missed it myself. So it was lovely to hear those speeches, and I hope you enjoyed them too. But this music means we are approaching the end of the show. But before I go, let's have the results of last month's competition. The prize was a copy of The Magic of Cats by Andrew Anderson, and the question I asked was, Andrew recently became the new scribe of the Order. Who was the Order's previous scribe? Well, the answer is, of course, the amazing Stephanie Carr-Gomm, and the first name drawn from the hat and winner of that brilliant book is Ren Lewis from Australia. Congratulations, Ren. That book will be with you very soon. The prize this month is a classic book written by the new Ollamh of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. I am talking, of course, of Blood and Mistletoe, the history of Druids in Britain. And the question I'd like you to answer is, according to Pliny the Elder, the ancient Druids cut mistletoe from a sacred species of tree. What was that tree? According to Pliny the Elder, the ancient Druids cut mistletoe from a sacred species of tree. What was that tree? Email your answer along with your full postal address to podcast@druidry.org, and one of you will win that brilliant book. Well, my friends, that is a show. I will see you back here next month for episode 229. But until then, I wish you all peace and blessed be. Goodbye.